Today I'm going to take a look at the AKG C214 large diaphragm condenser microphone. Now this is definitely a step up from your average budget entry-level condenser mic, but it's really popular with vocalists and for recording instruments, and it could be a good choice for your studio, so let's check it out. Now AKG has used one capsule from the legendary C414 microphone in the C214, so we can expect great sound from this microphone. We just won't have the flexibility of the multiple polar patterns we get with the C414. But if all you need is cardioid, this could be a great option. Now all of the audio in today's review is going to be without processing. So I'm using the Focusrite Scarlett 8i6. I have the gain here set at about 1130. I chose that interface because I think it's representative of what a lot of you might use with this microphone, but I will give you a chance to hear this with some higher end preamps later on. I've got the Universal Audio 710, and we'll also listen to the ART voice channel. Now you're also going to be able to hear my computer fan ramped up in the background. It's really hot in here today, so just know that that's going to be there. Going to take care of that with a major studio upgrade in the next few weeks, but more on that in another video. So to get started, I want to take a look at working distance. Now right now I have the C214 at about 6 inches away from my mouth, and I have it across axis, and that's because I don't want to speak directly into it. I'm not using a pop filter here. We'll check that out later. But from this distance, if I speak directly into it, people, because, we get a little bit of plosive happening. It's actually a pretty good microphone that way. But let's try a little bit further back. Now I'm at about a foot away from the microphone, and you should still get a really good signal here. I'm looking at the meter and not really noticing much difference at all at this point. Of course, the further I move back, we will get a little more room noise. So let's back up to about 2 feet. Okay, and now I'm at about 2 feet away from the mic, and it has dropped here, I'm going to say about 5 dB. Not actually a whole lot, so again, the sensitivity on this microphone is really good. It's great for using for overheads, for drums, or if you want to use it for a room mic or that, so it's really great. I'm going to grab a shaker here, and just from this distance, I'm going to let you hear just how well this picks up. And yeah, that's fully picking up that sound, no issues whatsoever. So really sensitive microphone, can be used from a distance, but of course you'll get the best sound as you move up closer to the mic. And again, 6 inches off axis seems to be really good. Now the C214 is really designed for studio use, so they're not expecting you to be really moving it around so much. Right now I have the switches here with the pad turned off, so it's just a 0 dB attenuation, and I also have the high pass filter turned off, so we're not going to get any roll off of frequencies. So I'm going to tap on the boom arm. And as you can hear, it's definitely picking that up, especially in the low range in that. So I'm going to actually grab the controls on here right now, and we'll do a test. So now I've activated the high pass filter, and on this microphone that actually starts rolling off at 160 Hertz. So you can also hear me now and see the difference it's making in my voice. But I'm going to tap on the boom arm again. And that actually cleans up quite a bit of that. So if you did have a situation where you might bump it or otherwise, and you can afford to roll off those low frequencies, definitely could be an option. We'll go ahead and turn that back onto flat. And now what I'll do is I'll turn the pad on here. It's a minus 20 dB. And so that's with the minus 20 dB pad. And looking at the meter, I would say that's a pretty realistic amount of attenuation here. Now you have a lot of range of use with this microphone because with the pad engaged, you can go up to a sound pressure level of 156 dB with this. So it's going to be really great for miking up loud sound sources as well as sensitive sound sources. Later on, we'll mic up a guitar amp and bass amp and see just what it can take. And before I get into the microphone comparisons, I'll just do one last test for you. Just quickly off-axis rejection. And again, this is a cardioid pickup pattern, so we're expecting sound in front. As I turn the microphone, this is at 90 degrees. Turn it a little more around 180 degrees. Really get a kind of a low bass sound here out of the back in that. So a little bit different than some others. And again, the other 90 degrees here. So I would say it's a realistic, cardioid polar pattern, but definitely quite a bit of bass response out of the back. And for the first comparison, I have the C214 against the Audio-Technica AT2020. Now the C14 is about 5 times the price of the AT2020, so we should expect that it's going to have a cleaner sound, less noise in the background. And of course, I'm going to switch back and forth between the two mics so you can get an idea. I do have them both connected to the Focusrite Scarlett 8i6. I have the gain on the C214 at 1130 and the gain on the AT2020 just below noon. I've tried to match them as close as possible, and I don't have any processing applied. And now you've had a chance to hear both microphones. Which one are you hearing now? Is it the C214 or the AT2020? Of course, check that top corner. For the second comparison, I have the MXL 990 Blaze Edition. It's about a quarter of the price of the C214, so again, we're going to expect quite a bit more out of the C214, but is it 4 times as good? Now, I have the gain on the MXL 990 set at 11 o'clock. Gain on the C214 is 1130, so the 990 is a little more sensitive here. I'm, of course, switching back and forth while I'm speaking, and once again, these microphones are both connected to the Scarlett 8i6. And I've had a chance to hear me on both microphones. Can you tell the difference? Again, is this the C214 or is it the MXL 990 Blaze? Check that top corner. Now for the third comparison here for the C214, I've got the Rode NT1A, and both of these microphones I would describe as colorful. They both have kind of a presence boost going on in the upper frequencies, and so I think they'll be a good comparison for one another. Now the C214 is about 3 times the price of the NT1A, so again, a little bit of an unfair comparison, if you will. But there's a few of the specs on the NT1A, including self-noise, that are actually even a little bit lower than the C214. Now, both are connected to the Scarlett 8i6. Gain on each one is 1130. No processing here, trying to keep them as evenly matched as possible. And, of course, I'm just switching back and forth between the two mics. And once again, you've heard both microphones. Which one am I speaking on now? Check the top corner. And for the last comparison, one dynamic microphone here. I've chosen the SM7B. In my region, it's about $100 less, actually, than the C214, but again, considered to be one of the more popular dynamic microphones, so I thought it'd be a good comparison to use against the C214. Both get a lot of use from vocalists. So again, talking on each microphone, here of course the SM7B is a dynamic mic, so it doesn't use phantom power. Got the gain at about 4 o'clock on it versus again only 1130 on the C214, so it takes a lot more to drive the SM7B. But what do you think of the tone? Is there any similarities or any differences? Let me know in the comments below. And for one final time, now that you've heard both the C214 and the SM7B, which one are you hearing now? Check that top corner out. Now, most audio interfaces will give you 48 volts of phantom power. This microphone is spec'd to work with anywhere from 9 to 52 volts, so that's quite a wide range. And some of you will have a mixer that has 12 or 15 volts of power, so I'll do a test for you using my Behringer PS400. This allows me to get 12 volts phantom, and we'll see if it makes any difference. So this, of course, is 48 volts. Let's check out 12. And we're now using 12 volts phantom power here with the C214, and I have to say, the level doesn't look any different here. It looks like I'm getting full level here, and the sound, again, to my monitoring seems to be reasonable as well. So pretty wide range, and I think based on my first take here anyways, microphone does a really good job here with 12 volts. And now I moved the C214 over to the Universal Audio preamp, the 710 TwinFinity. And at the time of recording, it's about a $1,000 preamp, so considerably more expensive than the whole Scarlett interface. And just to give you an idea of the difference here, what I like about this preamp is it allows us to blend solid state and tube. So we get 2 different stages, we can get different sound. So right now I have full solid state, and just to give you an idea of the tone here, of course still no processing, so you can hear that fan in the background, but just a difference in the sound itself. Now I'm going to gradually move this up towards the tube. Now I've got about 25% towards the tube, so 75 solid state, 25% tube, and it starts to introduce a little bit of saturation, a little more thickness to the sound. Now I'll keep turning it up. I think we're getting to, it's about 50% tube now, so half and half. And again, a little more saturation here. Now, of course, you would adjust this depending on the type of instrument or voice you were going to record. Sometimes a little more saturation from a tube is better. Sometimes a little cleaner sound or even a little more muscular sound from a transformer can be good. I'll keep turning it up. Now I'm up at about 75% here, so 75% tube, 25% solid state. Getting a lot more saturation from my monitoring coming in here. And finally, all the way up to full 100% tube here. And so this is the maximum kind of saturation and harmonics we can get from a tube. Again, the idea of a higher end preamp is to give you more flexibility in the sound and also let you shape kind of the character, get the most out of the microphone. Now, condenser mics are really known for picking up fine detail. That's one of the primary reasons we use them over a dynamic microphone. So I'm going to use a couple of percussion instruments here to let you hear that fine detail as well as dynamics. I'll start out here again with the shaker and just listen for the very fine sound of the grains here as I move it. to my monitoring, that's really picking up almost the individual grains. It's a really detailed mic. Now I've got the Kabasa here, and I'll shake this as well as clap it against my hand. And again, this really is a detailed mic. It does a great job of picking those up. Hope it translates over the video here as well. Now we'll check out what it does on the other end of the spectrum with high SPL. We've got some tests with guitar and bass amps. Now I compare microphones for amp cabinets against the Shure SM57 because I think it's a relatable comparison. Many of you either use a 57 to mic up an amp or you've heard that, and so I think it gives you a basis of comparison anyways. Now I find the logarithmic analysis of these two microphones on rock guitar to be really interesting because the lower frequencies are very similar across the board, but when we get from the 2.5 to about 6K range, the 57 has a greater pickup. It has a higher boost in those frequencies. And so that's really the brightness that we're hearing in comparison between the 57 and the C214. Now we'll listen to some blues guitar and we'll see if we get the same thing. And here again in the logarithmic comparison of the blues guitar, we're seeing that higher frequency response in the 2.5 to 6K range from the 57. The low frequencies are all very similar, and so the 57 does sound brighter. Now, based on what we saw in the rock and blues guitar analysis, I was expecting to see the same thing in bass, only to a lesser extent. And that is what we're seeing here. The 2.5 and up range, really 2.5 to 6K range, is more boosted on the 57 versus on the C214, but it's less noticeable because of the distribution of frequencies. Either way, both microphones have a different character, and we select the one based on the tone we're trying to get. Now, the build quality of the C214 is excellent. It's all metal construction, really solid. There is virtually no give on the screen at all, so really durable that way. Plug is solid, everything's good there. In terms of the shock mount, it is plastic, but it does seem like it's going to hold up really well. I certainly haven't had any issues. And I would have liked to have seen a metal sleeve in the attachment here for the boom arm. So The 5/8 in here, this is just plastic. Would have been nice to have that. And that's about the only thing I can say with build quality on this microphone, and it's not even the mic. Now, in terms of features, of course, this is a cardioid microphone pickup pattern here, large diaphragm condenser, frequency response of 20 to 20,000 hertz. I'll have a link to full details below in the description, but the specs are really good on this microphone. Equivalent noise around 13 dB with a signal to noise of 81 dB. Certainly we have some microphones that have lower self-noise than that, but it really doesn't come across too much in this microphone. It does a really good job. Again, it's really sensitive. So that wide range also in the phantom power is nice to see here, and it's a moderate microphone in terms of weight, not overly heavy. Now, for those of you thinking about using the C214 for voiceover or for podcasting, I want to give you an idea of what you could do to get that ready. And so I've gone ahead and added up a few plugins here. Got vocal denoise or voice denoise happening from iZotope here. That's mainly to get rid of that computer fan in the background. And then I have the Focusrite Red 2 and 3 EQ and compressor. And again, those are included with all Scarlett and Claret interfaces. And so just very, very mild compression and EQ here. And I also have the SPL dual band de-esser. That's my favorite all-time hardware de-esser. And here in the plugin format, I think it does a good job as well. And hopefully you can hear that sort of muscular voiceover sound coming across here. Certainly there are higher end mics that you could go with, but if you wanted to use this as your voiceover mic, you can definitely produce professional recordings. Now, it also includes a pop filter, kind of foam, and I'm going to put that on here. And so if you want to speak directly into the microphone for a voiceover to even engage a little bit of proximity effect, you certainly can do that, and it'll give you that really thick, muscular sound. So I hope that gives you an idea. Definitely the C14 could be a great voiceover mic. Now I've gone ahead and moved the C214 back over to the Universal Audio 710 TwinFinity. I have that routed into my ART voice channel. Now I'm not using the preamp in the voice channel, only the compression, de-esser, EQ, as well as expander. And so we have a full hardware chain here, no plugins. Now if you're in a streaming space or a less than ideal room, you could go ahead and still use a noise reduction plugin with this. I haven't done it here because I wanted you to just hear full hardware with this microphone. But nonetheless, that's definitely an option. But this is one way, again, to get some great sound out of the 214. Now I've got a chance to hear the C214 and also see a few of the tests that I've done. I'll give you my final thoughts. I'm going to say that this microphone is definitely a step up from your budget condenser microphones. It's kind of in that mid-price point. Certainly if we take out those ultra high-end mics like U87s and that, and we think about microphones that are in an accessible price range, this one here is what I would call midpoint. And again, it performs at least that well, and if not even better. I would say that you have to spend 2 and 3 times the price to get something as good as this. Now, it doesn't have all the bells and whistles as some of the others, right? So it doesn't have variable polar patterns. You just get one, but it does have the high-pass filter as well as the pad, and really versatile range of operation. So I'm going to say that there's a lot of value here. If you want to level up the recordings you're making, whether it's with vocals or with instruments, this could be the microphone to get. And if you're interested possibly in other microphones that might help level up your recordings, check out one of these 2 videos.